This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for all of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and today we're going to be talking about controversy and drama. Not any one controversy in particular, to be clear, but rather the increasingly prevalent belief that the only way for artists to get noticed anymore is by starting it, or at least getting involved in it. Unfortunately, occasionally opening TikTok once every few months to take note of current events and general art community sentiment is necessary for my job. So a few weeks ago, that's exactly what I was doing when I came across one video that got my attention. In and of itself, it wasn't really that crazy or attention-grabbing. Just a speed paint of a work in progress with text that read, "Pretend I said something controversial, please. I want more people to see my art." Obviously, it was a joke, and they were kidding. And I did actually laugh at first, but the legitimate social commentary behind it was a lot less funny, and it stayed on my mind long after I closed the app and moved on. Because satire or not, it's indicative of a real problem in the community that seems to be getting worse by the day. That a lot of artists sincerely feel like saying controversial things and getting attention for them in the process is the only option they have left to get their art noticed. And that's even more of a problem because that's by no means an unfounded notion. I can think of at least 20 now very popular artists just off the top of my head that I only know of because they got into some kind of drama. And while I genuinely do like their art, regardless of what controversy landed it on my Twitter feed, I wouldn't have known it even existed if they hadn't gotten into the drama that got it there. I obviously have no way of knowing whether or not generating that attention for their art was their reason for getting into drama in the first place, but it's hard to ignore the fact that them doing so was legitimately effective at generating it either way. So with so many artists rising in popularity based more on their problematic hot takes than their work itself, it's not hard to see why so many people are coming to believe that that's the only way to get their art noticed in such increasingly competitive and oversaturated social media communities. It works, and very little else does. It's incredibly difficult these days to get any recognition for your art or build a following based on it alone. And there are a lot of reasons for that I've ranted about on this channel more times than I can count. Oversaturation has led social media users to be constantly exposed to very high quality art. So high quality art on its own is gradually becoming less impressive, unless it has some other source of intrigue or appeal in addition to demonstrating a high level of skill. It's not enough to be a good artist if everyone you're trying to be seen by is seeing thousands of others in rapid succession. Both that oversaturation and the growing popularity of AI-generated images is in turn contributing significantly to the growing lack of appreciation for and devaluation of art, leaving many viewers of it feeling as if its sole value is decided by how entertaining or engaging it is as a piece of content, not an expression of creativity. Algorithms are designed to promote near constant posting, making it really hard for artists to make enough work quickly enough to keep up and get a fair shot at having their art pushed to enough viewers to be seen at all. There are a lot of reasons that artists are struggling more than ever to achieve any degree of success or recognition for their work online, and it's no surprise that they're looking for any way they can find to increase those odds, even if it means being deliberately controversial even when they don't want to be. And whether or not that's morally right isn't what this video is going to be about. I'm not taking a stance one way or another on whether or not being controversial as a method of essentially art marketing is ethical or good. I think it's a matter of opinion, and weighing in on that isn't what I'm here to do. What I do want to talk about is what I'm significantly more worried about, that more and more artists are viewing starting drama and being deliberately inflammatory and controversial not as just one way that they could get their art noticed, but the only one. Because I honestly think a huge portion of the controversies that the art community has seen in recent years were motivated by that very belief, and the idea that those involved felt that being involved was something they had to do just to have any chance of making it as artists. And that makes me legitimately upset. It also makes me equally upset to acknowledge all of the evidence suggesting that they might have been right. So in today's video, I'm going to discuss my thoughts on that question. Is being controversial really one of the only ways artists have left to get noticed? Is starting drama becoming necessary just to have a shot at having our art seen? Because it comes with a lot of downsides, both for the artists themselves and the community as a whole. And while I understand what motivates it, I don't want anyone to feel like accepting the many, many negative consequences of seeking fame through controversy is their only option if it isn't. But before we start unpacking my many thoughts on that, let me first take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. Squarespace has been supporting this channel for a ridiculously long time now, something regular viewers know very well given that it's actually become a regular source of alarm amongst them when a video starts without me gushing about them. And there's a good reason that I've been so vocal about my love for the platform that commenters have jokingly started shipping me with them. I genuinely believe that they're the best website building and hosting platform out there. I learned firsthand just how easy it is to use their templates and tools to build a beautiful, professional looking portfolio by building my own, long before I started working with them, which is why they're always my first recommendation for any artist looking to build theirs. But that's really just the beginning of what they have to offer. Their massive, versatile library of templates includes perfect options for every type or category of site you could possibly need, from portfolios to stores to this very incredibly serious collection of reaction images you're seeing right now. And with the power to customize absolutely every aspect of your site with ease, each template can be easily edited to suit your individual needs and make it your own. With features that help you maximize your site's functionality and visual design tools that make establishing valuable brand recognition easy, there's really no limit to what you can make. And with the Squarespace Commerce platform, it's just as easy to turn it into an online store, since it lets you do everything from manage your inventory to take sales and even to print shipping labels. And it's just as easy for your customers to pay, since Squarespace offers all of the most popular payment methods like Klarna, ACH Direct Debit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay, as well as the option to send individualized invoices to specific clients. Whether you're an artist in need of a portfolio, an entrepreneur building an online store, a creator setting up an interactive blog, or a small business owner making a landing page, Squarespace is the place to do it. And you can find out yourself by going to squarespace.com to get your own free trial today. And once you've built the perfect site that you're ready to launch, you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain by going to squarespace.com/Duchess linked in the description. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and please go check them out. Now, let's get back to controversy. It's always had its place in the art world, and until recently, that wasn't a bad thing. In fact, controversy's role in art has almost always been a positive one, or at least a productive one. Creative expression has been utilized by artists for centuries to communicate serious and thought-provoking messages and beliefs, with both its subject matter and style being used to convey what have historically been some very controversial perspectives. One of art's primary purposes is to express something important to the artist creating it, and when what it's expressing happens to be an opinion or viewpoint that's unpopular or underrepresented, it's naturally been met with consistent conflict and heated debate by those who haven't shared it. Whether it's debate over whether or not the viewers agree with the message the art is sending, over whether or not the medium itself should really be considered art at all, over whether its style is appealing or not, and so much more. It's never been a bad thing for art to be the source of controversy. In fact, if it wasn't, we'd likely never have seen the definition of art expand anywhere near as significantly and beautifully as it has, or had important social movements and ideological advancements prompted and bolstered by the commentary that art shares and provokes. Controversy and art have always gone hand in hand, and that has almost never been a bad thing, but rather the source of progress and contemplation. But that's because in the vast majority of cases, it was the art itself that was controversial, the message it was sending, the medium it used, the style in which it was depicted. Regardless of what it was about the art that was controversial, it was an aspect of the art itself that was the source of disagreement and debate. There have obviously always been exceptions in cases where the artists themselves have actually been the sources of the controversies through their actions, statements, or behavior rather than their work. But they've generally been the minority compared to those known for using their art to provoke debate and contention instead. That in mind, when I talk about artists being controversial to bring attention to their work, I think it's important to be clear that that's not what I'm talking about. I believe controversy to be a productive and valuable component of art that prompts development, improvement, and understanding, and I take no issue with it in the slightest. My problem is with the fact that in recent years, we've gradually started moving away from creating controversial art and towards creating controversy to promote art. And to be fair, it's by no means something that's limited to art. Acting controversially in any setting has always been a tried and true method of gaining attention. Especially for celebrities and YouTubers, the fame that they earn is often owed in large part to the fact that they got involved with some kind of drama or controversy that then led people to check out their content or work after hearing about them as a result. It's so common in so many settings that studies have actually been done into its effectiveness as an intentional tactic, trying to objectively assess what the perfect balance is that will allow those who use it to be just controversial enough to get people talking about them, without being so controversial that it drives them away. It's taught in marketing courses and factored into almost every marketing strategy, something that I learned firsthand by working as a marketing consultant for an abysmally long time. Research suggests that a low level of controversy significantly increases discussion of the topic in question, while a higher level of it that crosses a certain line actually decreases the likelihood of that conversation, as a result of those interested in the topic feeling too angry, upset, or uncomfortable to want to engage with it. Many public figures have used this to be just the right amount of controversial that people argue about them and therefore keep them in the spotlight, without earning them so much hate that it overwhelms any attention paid to them and their work. And regardless of how you feel about the ethics of it, it's an effective shortcut that's been used for ages by influencers, celebrities, content creators, media outlets, politicians, and the entire entertainment industry for a very, very long time to acquire fame. So what's different about artists doing it? Well, fundamentally, nothing. Being controversial to gain popularity and notoriety is inherently the same regardless of how or why you're doing it, and artists using this method are no different than the public figures that we see do it every day. The difference isn't in the tactic itself or its morality, but rather whether it's a shortcut to success or the only way to achieve it for those using it. Because for most other people utilizing this method, doing so isn't necessary. It gets results faster and more consistently, but it's not the only way for them to find success or popularity. virality. There are tons of uncontroversial YouTubers and celebrities that have built their followings without relying on generating drama to do it for them, finding other ways to get people talking about them without making them mad or upset. It's harder, yes, but it's possible, and it's ultimately up to the public figure in question to decide whether they want to do the hard work or take the shortcut and live with the consequences. More and more often, though, artists are coming to feel as if they don't have that same choice in the matter. Like it's not a shortcut, it's the only option they have. As social media becomes more and more oversaturated with both high-quality art and a high volume of AI-generated images, it's becoming impossibly difficult for artists to find a way to stand out and compete with all of that for even a second of a user's attention and engagement, much less establish a following with their work. After all, art just isn't viewed the way it used to be anymore. It has so much less value to buyers and viewers alike than ever before, and its value sinks lower and lower as it comes to be seen as nothing more than consumable content rather than creative expression, because no one really cares about the latter anymore. As a result, artists are turning to drama as the only way to get any recognition for their art at all, not by making art that's controversial by nature of the message it's sending or the creative decisions it's making, but by making deliberately controversial statements online just for a chance at getting attention from that conflict that might then lead those interested to notice their otherwise unrelated art. Which, again, is neither here nor there when it comes to morality, in my opinion. If they want to piss people off just to get them to notice their art, that's a decision that's ultimately up to them, and they have the ability to choose for themselves whether or not it's worth it to accept the consequences and downsides that come along with it. What worries me is that even artists who aren't okay with that and don't want to are growing so desperate that they feel like they have to do it anyway, because building a name for their art without drama to generate interest seems more impossible every day, therefore making them feel forced to accept all of those consequences and downsides even when they aren't worth it to them. There's a big difference, for example, between stealing food because you want to and stealing food because you can't afford not to. Both thieves take the same risks, but only the former has the privilege of choosing whether or not those risks are worth the reward. The latter just has no alternative but to accept them. And while the consequences of relying on drama and controversy to get noticed as an artist aren't quite as severe as those of theft, they're by no means insignificant. In fact, for artists in particular, using controversy to get attention often comes with just as many costs as it does benefits. For example, the people whose attention that you capture will likely be vastly more interested in you and your role in that controversy than your art. And that can be both a good thing and a bad thing. On the plus side, it means that you can draw whatever you want and still have it be well received, because they'll like it based less on subject matter and based more on the fact that they like you, and you're the one who made it. You pretty much have the freedom to draw whatever you want without being tied to one niche, style, or subject, since none of those things are what give your art value to those supporting you. But that's a double-edged sword, because people being interested in your art solely because you're controversial doesn't necessarily mean they'll actually be interested in your art at all. In fact, they're unlikely to appreciate it for what it is as a piece of art and creative expression much, if at all. If the majority of them like and buy your art because you were on the right side of a drama that got a lot of attention, that's going to be much less because of any stylistic or aesthetic value it possesses, and much more because it's your creation and that's really all that matters to them. It can result in a following that doesn't really appreciate any aspect of your art beyond the fact that it's made by you, and that's not something a lot of artists really want. Further, them being interested in your art because you're controversial doesn't necessarily mean them liking it. If the only reason they checked it out in the first place was that they found out about you after being sincerely hurt or offended by the controversial statements or actions you're known for, they might be biased against it to the point that they're more inclined to hate it even when they would have otherwise really liked it, solely because their opinion is clouded by the controversy that it's shrouded in. Like, look at The Painter, an analog horror series that was created to promote the art of its creator, Urban Spook. I did a whole video on it if you want more information, but essentially, he used a controversial, offensive, and needlessly disturbing analog horror story to generate attention for the art that it featured, and then continued to be the source of even more controversy with his toxic, abrasive, exploitative behavior online after its release. Urban Spook openly admitted that the story's initial purpose was solely to get attention for his art by drawing people in with shock value so they'd check out the rest of his work, and technically, he succeeded. Urban Spook's deliberately provocative and inflammatory videos and statements online have earned him a well-known reputation within both the art community and the analog horror community, and his art was the subject of prolific discussion online as a result of it. But because of how overwhelmingly poorly received so many of his statements and actions have been, even those discussing his art that like it and acknowledge its technical and aesthetic quality and would otherwise have been inclined to support it are actually being driven away and discouraged from doing so by the sheer deplorability of the statements that he made to prompt the controversy that got him the attention. And that's not the only risk that comes from using this tactic either. It's also notoriously tenuous and unstable. If your popularity as an artist is primarily contingent upon the dramas that you're involved in rather than the art you're creating, you'll pretty much always need to be walking a very thin line between being the topic of everyone's discussion and getting a lot of eyes on your work in the process, and being cancelled and having your art almost universally despised regardless of quality as a result. One slip-up could mean throwing away all of the success that you've achieved so far. And it's not like you can recognize that danger and say, okay, I was controversial enough to get this attention, I'll just just stop now to avoid risking anything else. Eventually, if drama is the main reason people are interested in you and your art, drama will need to be maintained for their interest to be maintained. Eventually, if you stop being inflammatory and provocative, you'll stop generating that attention for your work. And those in your audience who were only interested in it because of you as a person, and not its quality or content, may lose interest and leave if you're no longer sufficiently entertaining to them. Some may stick around because they discovered a genuine appreciation for your art regardless of how they discovered it. But with the rest, it's quite similar to the dilemma that fan artists face. You may be able to generate a large following by drawing fan art of popular characters from popular media, but because most of those followers will be more interested in those characters than your art itself, you're liable to lose them if you start drawing anything else. Just as fan artists have to accept that they either have to keep drawing fan art to maintain their following, or accept the loss of a significant portion of it if they stop, artists known for being controversial have to accept that they either have to keep being sustainably and acceptably controversial indefinitely, or sacrifice the majority of the popularity they gained as it dwindles when they stop. And staying just controversial enough to be interesting without being controversial enough to be hated is really hard, and I imagine incredibly exhausting, especially if you don't even hold the controversial views that you're sharing and are just pretending to for the attention. Finally, it also has an impact on creativity. If you know people are primarily interested in your art because you got their attention with your controversial views and statements, you might feel like your actual art and ideas have less value, since they won't likely even be the primary thing that your followers are focused on or interested in. And if you feel like no one cares about what you draw so long as you both keep drawing in general and keep being controversial, you may start caring less about it too, gradually coming to lose sight of the creativity and passion that drove you to pursue art in the first place. But at the end of the day, some artists might feel like all of those downsides are worth it, and the shortcut to popularity that drama promises is more valuable to them than the risks accompanied by it. And that should be their decision to make, regardless of how any of us feel about whether that's right or wrong. I'm not saying any artist shouldn't seek popularity through controversy because it's wrong. I'm saying they shouldn't feel like doing so is their only option, regardless of whether or not they think it is. It should be a sacrifice you choose to make, not one you feel like you have to. And as I've said already, many artists feel like it's not up to them anymore. If they want their art to be seen, it's their only option. It's not a decision to be made, but an ultimatum to be accepted. And as I've also said already, they're not being unreasonable by coming to that conclusion. With the state of the world, social media, constant oversaturation and competition in art communities, the societal devaluation of art, and the rise of AI-generated images, it may at this point be arguably true that artists do need to do something more than just make good art to get any recognition for it now. And I understand why, when so many artists are watching their peers gain thousands of followers in a day just for saying something that managed to piss off TikTok or Twitter, they think it's the only thing they can do to achieve the same result. But while I'll acknowledge that it is one option that's particularly fast and effective, I sincerely don't believe it to be the only one. Many may have found success with it, and it might be one of the easiest ways to get noticed, but there are still others. The conflict at the core of this issue is that art needs a selling point beyond its aesthetic value to be appreciated now, and starting drama is just one potential selling point to fill that need. This can ultimately be achieved in a multitude of different ways, something I made an entire video about that's linked in the iCard above if you're interested. To summarize it quickly for those of you who aren't though, I posit in that video that the secret to making it as an artist is to make a personal connection with those who view your art, that leads them to see more value in it based on that connection than it would have had without it. Sure, you can make that personal connection by saying it's unforgivable to imitate your art style in any way and everyone on the internet is copying you, pissing off everyone who thinks that's stupid and gaining the instant support of everyone who agrees, not naming names. But you can also make that personal connection by sending a message that resonates with viewers on a deeper level, by making them laugh with your art, by sharing your personality and identity with them through the way that you present your art, and so much more. Even if the only way to get your art seen these days is to get people talking about it based on something more personal than just thinking it looks nice, there are other ways to get them talking about it and personally interested than just by pissing them off through controversy. I don't think artists should be pressured to accept the many negative consequences of doing that just because they think it's their only option, because I really don't think it is. Art can be controversial or interesting enough to generate popularity and attention without the artist needing to rely on petty drama and spitefulness to achieve that result, as much as I understand why so many people feel otherwise. So in conclusion, as I said, even if relying on controversy and drama is one very effective method of getting attention for your art, there are other ways, even if just making good art that you like may not be enough anymore. And if the many downsides that come with using that method aren't worth it to you, please don't feel like you have to accept them anyway just to have any chance at all of getting any recognition for your art. And if they are worth it to you, you do you. Like I said, I'm not here to comment on the morality of the tactic. Years and years of working in marketing would make that comedically hypocritical. But I will say this for those of you interested in my 2 cents. At least try to be harmless about it. If you've decided to be controversial online just so that people will notice your art in the process of arguing about something that you said, at least let the thing that you said be something that isn't hateful. If you have to make people argue about your take on something, let that take be on the correct orientation of toilet paper, or the presence of pineapple on pizza, or literally any ship of 2 Genshin characters together. Not only is that apparently scientifically proven to be much more effective than the use of more polarizing and upsetting takes anyway, it much more importantly doesn't hurt people or spread hate. Before I end this video though, I do want to say one more thing. Everything I've said up until now has been contingent upon the idea that artists should want and seek attention for their work. And that's because contrary to the common argument that it's vain or arrogant or childish to want your art to get attention and you should be satisfied with your own appreciation of it regardless of anyone else's, I personally believe that it's perfectly valid for artists to seek external appreciation for their work. As artists, we put so much time, effort, and love into what we create, and part of that is almost always on some level because we want to share that passion and creativity with others. And it's validating and reassuring to feel like the work that you put into it has paid off because someone other than yourself appreciates it too. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting your work to be seen and finding ways to raise your chances of that happening, because I think it's a natural part of creating art. But I do want to say this. There's a difference between wanting that attention for your art and needing that attention just to feel like it's good or worthwhile. It's perfectly fine to seek to share your work with other people and aim to gain their appreciation for it. But whether your art gets that attention or not has no bearing on how good it is. Remember that regardless of how successful you are or aren't at gaining a reputation and following as an artist, the number of likes your art gets is not a reflection of its value. I completely understand wanting those likes and wanting to build a name for yourself as an artist, but success at that depends so much more on luck and marketing than it does on skill and quality, and just please don't feel like not getting those numbers means you as an artist are failing. What matters first and foremost is that you like the art you make. And while I'm not naive or idealistic enough to suggest that that should mean you should never seek anyone else's approval or recognition, I do think it's important to develop a healthy enough relationship with your art that you don't need it just for it to be worth something to you. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Joseph Solomon, TC Pratt, Zelda Deverak 42, Haruki Saluzzo, King Good James, CP Lil Thing, Art of Amethyst Fable, Extinction Animation, and Andy the Hedgehog, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, Alengshi, Kim Yen, Crazy Asar, Gentong, Grayson Xavier, Blah Mage, TC Pratt, Finn, Celine Merriman, Ash, Eldritchia, The Stray Dog, Allura, Greg Noble, Decagon, Jenny Chan, Catbus, Mac, Lucia Majiki, Selena Beebe, Pride, Totally Shogun, Insomniac Sleep Schedule, Wing Tang Wang, Marie Greer, Potato, and Jazz, and I'll see you in the next one.